Hey friend, welcome to Girls Night, where we work through life's biggest decisions and transitions together. I'm your host, Stephanie Mae Wilson, and I am so excited to have you here for our last episode of 2024. Let's get started. So friends, I'm so excited to get this time together. I'm in my office here in our little apartment in Spain. I'm cozied up I'm truly wearing sweatpants. I'm wearing a giant sweatshirt. And I thought about changing because, we have a YouTube channel and apparently, some people get kind of fancy for their YouTube channel. And I was like, I cannot. It is the end of the year. It's cold outside. We have done a million things this year. It is the time to be cozy and to relax and to just catch up and be together as friends. And so anyway, that is my mode here as we're doing our last episode of the year. It's crazy to me that this is our last episode. We have had a wild 2024. We have done something we've never done before on the Girls Night podcast, and we had an episode come out every single week for all of 2024. In the past, we've done seasons, so we'll do 12 episodes and take a little break and do another 12. But this year, because I had a book coming out in April, we decided to just go for it and do a ton of Girls Night episodes. And it was so wonderful and fun. And I am so much better for the conversations that I got to have with so many wise and wonderful, and just truly brilliant women. And so it's crazy that we're at the end of this, and I really am fully in sweatpant mode. It's been a big year. So today, as we are at the end of the year, as we're at the end of sort of our year together at Girls Night, and as the end of the calendar year is creeping up on us, and by creeping, I mean sprinting up on us, I wanted to talk about what the new year means. I wanted to give just kind of a little recap, some things that I'm thinking about in my life as the year is coming to a close. And then I wanted to share with you guys the 3 things that I do at the end of every year, because it's a practice that I've been doing for over a decade. And these things there's kind of 2 things I do, 1 thing I don't do on purpose. And that's made a huge difference for me. So I want to share those things with you as you're getting ready to finish up a year too. So first of all, just kind of a recap of what this year has looked like for me. I feel like if I had to give this year a title, it would absolutely be Create a Life You Love, which also happens to be the name of my book that came out this year, because that totally was the theme. That book came out in April. It's called Create a Life You Love, How to Quiet Outside Voices So You Can Finally Hear Your Own. And it's for women in something that I call the everything era. And it's this time when you're kind of in your late 20s, 30s, where you're having to make all of these gigantic decisions all at the same time. And it's career, and it's marriage, and it's motherhood, and moving, where are you going to live, who are your people, all of these gigantic life things meet at the exact same time. And you end up playing this sort of weird game of Tetris, trying to figure out if it's going to all happen, when it's all going to happen, if it all can happen together, or if one dream is going to cost another. And it's also a time when you have the most people prying into your life, asking you, are you still not dating anybody? Or are you guys done having kids? Or are there baby on the way? I see you're not drinking. People have thoughts and opinions about this time of our lives as women. And that's a lot of pressure to put on a season that already has a lot of pressure on it. So Create a Life You Love is my story of navigating this season of life as a chronic people pleaser, type A. I'm an Enneagram 2. I'm totally a relationships person. And so being in a good spot with my relationships is of the utmost importance to me, which can sometimes turn into being a people pleaser. I have anxiety, all kinds of things have made decision-making really difficult for me over the years. And it's my story of how I've started to reclaim some of that, and how I've started to make some of my own decisions and steer the wheel of my own life. It's been an incredibly powerful and empowering process. And I love where it's turned out. And so the book is really how you can turn down the voices that are telling you what your life is supposed to look like and when, and hear what your own voice is telling you and what you actually want to do with your life, what you actually want to get out of life, and what that looks like for you. Because, as I've learned the hard way and over and over and over again, There really is not one right way to build a life. A beautiful life is not one size fits all. We get to decide. We get to make decisions about our own lives. So this book is how to do that, like one step at a time. So I got to release this book at the very end of April 2024, which was just a really, I mean, it's hard to put words to it, what it meant to me to get to hold a book in my hands that I've worked on for so long. And also to get to share it with you guys. I got to do some like readings at bookstores and book signings. I got to do some speaking things. I got to the book was featured in all kinds of places that I just could never have dreamed. I got to do some stuff on TV. Like, it was very cool. And so that was kind of what happened with the book. It was really cool. The next thing that I got to do this year was I got to give a TEDx talk. And that was terrifying. Very, very nerve-wracking, but also very fun and very cool. And it's on the same topic. So that was another thing that made this the year of Create a Life You Love, was getting to do a TEDx talk about what it looks like to do that as a 20, 30-something woman. And then just a few months after the TED Talk and my book came out, on our 10-year wedding anniversary, my husband Carl and I sold our cars, most of our stuff, gave away, got rid of, sold most of our stuff, and put our 2 3-year-olds at the time on an airplane, and the 4 of us moved to Spain. And this is a dream that I have been dreaming for years and years and years and years, decades. And we actually did it this year. And so in so many ways, we're getting to live out the things that I just got to capture and write about in this book and in that TED Talk. So this has totally been a year of Create a Life You Love. But as we know, creating a life you love is a process. There are some decisions we can make that are like one time, overnight, everything changes decisions. But in a lot of other ways, in a lot of most areas of life, creating a life we love is a process. And that's also been true of this year for me. We'll talk about this soon, but I have a new guided journal for ending the year and starting a new one well. And in it, I have a lot of plant metaphors. This has been the year of plant metaphors. So bear with me. But in a lot of areas of my life this year, I got to reap the things that I planted a long time ago. This book, for example, I worked on it for 2 years before it came out. And so this year I got to harvest the thing that I planted 2 years ago and that I've been tending ever since. Same with the TED Talk, same with the move to Spain. These are things that have been in the works for a really long time. And so I got to harvest them this year. And so that was really exciting and really cool. But then there are other things where there are other areas in my life where I've planted seeds and I've been tending them and I haven't really seen much grow yet. And it's taken basically all of the determination and grit and follow through and hope that's in me to keep tending this seed, even when I'm not really seeing anything come from it yet. So that's kind of the other side of this year. So then in other areas of life, I'm just doing the thing that I know I have to do to get me where I want to go. And I'm having to just be so disciplined and also full of hope and grit to just keep moving forward little by little every single day in the direction of these things that I want to do and things I've committed to, even when I'm not really seeing much come from them yet. And I wanted to share that with you guys because I know that that's where a lot of us are. I think that's where most of us spend most of our time, is in this kind of messy middle. And so while I got to see the end of some things this year, I also have been really in the messy middle in a lot of different ways. The thing that I've just been telling myself over and over again is just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Just keep showing up, keep showing up, keep showing up. Something that people have been saying to us a lot here in Spain when it comes to all of us, working on our Spanish, and the girls are in their super picky eater era. And so they're learning how to kind of try and eat some different food, and specifically at school. And every day when their teachers tell us that they didn't eat anything in the lunchroom, they just go poco a poco, little by little, little by little. We're just we're making progress, we're showing up, we're doing the thing just little by little, even if we're not seeing progress yet. So Um, that's just a couple of the things I'm thinking about at the end of this year and just some of the things that I'm kind of unpacking. This really has been, I mean, I think probably one of the most pivotal years of my life. So, as I'm finishing what very well might be one of the most pivotal years of my whole life, there are three things that I'm doing. And just in case you're sitting here going, okay, it's the end of the year and I want to finish well and I want to start a new year well, but I don't know what that looks like. And I've tried to do this in the past and it hasn't gone very well. I wanted to share my process with you. Those are some of the things that I'm unpacking. And gosh, there's, of course, so much more. And then this is the process I'm using to unpack it and kind of take a next step forward, poco a poco, in the directions I want to be going in. So the very first thing I'm doing is that I'm totally ditching New Year's resolutions. For years, I don't know about you, but for years, I drank the New Year's Kool-Aid and I drank it hard. I felt so much pressure around New Year's. First of all, I felt like I had to have the world's best New Year's plans. And then also I felt like how I spent New Year's Day was really important because I'm not superstitious. I'm not like those, I'm not superstitious. However, for some reason, I felt like what I was doing on New Year's Eve and how I spent New Year's Day, like that transition, how I spent those days was like going to set the tone for the year. And that puts a ton of pressure on a day that already has a ton of pressure to have fantastic plans and glitter and champagne and friends and all these things. New Year's is hard. It's hard to do well. And so I really felt so much pressure around these days. Not only that, did I feel like I have to make sure I do them exactly right because, how I end one year and how I start the first day of the next year is like how the year is going to go. But also it felt like this was my one chance to change. Like if I was going to make any change in my life, in any area of my life, like this was the day to do it. This was the only time I could have a blank slate. And it kind of felt like there was some sort of like magic New Year's dust that like, if you don't catch it on that day, like the changes aren't going to be made in your life. Like you can't decide to be healthy on like, March 3rd. Like nothing good or like nothing special happens on March 3rd. But if you decide on January 1st, like you are a whole new you for the whole rest of the year. So I felt a ton of pressure. And so what I would do with that, other than stress about my New Year's plans, I would sit down, a couple of days before the year ended, and I would make a list of all the things that I really didn't like about myself. All the ways that I was falling short, all the things that I should be doing, but I'm not, all the things that I shouldn't be doing, but I am doing them. I just would make this whole list of things that I didn't like about myself. It kind of felt like, how in school, like I don't know if teachers still do this, but like they'd grade with red pen. It was like that red pen was just brutal. I would sit down and like take a red pen to myself and be like, needs improvement about 1,000 different things. And so then on some sort of, piece of paper, I would write down these things that I wanted to change. And I would like vow to make them different in the new year. But then New Year's Eve would be New Year's Eve, New Year's Day would start, however, and I would get into, I would take this list and try to put it into action. And then like 2 weeks into January, I would realize that I had already fallen short. This huge list of things that I had vowed to do, like I hadn't even made it to January 12th. And so then by that point, I would not only feel how I felt the year before, but I would feel even worse because now I was extra aware of all of the ways I was falling short. They were all circled with red pen. And I had now seen that I don't have what it takes to like get my stuff together to make my life different. So it was like, not only are you failing in all these ways, but you're also failing at fixing them. And that's probably not going to change. So like you're stuck this way. And that is not the way that I wanted to end one year or start another. Yet I did it for years and years and years. And then finally, I just had enough. I finally decided that I wanted to do things differently. There has to be a different way. This isn't how I want to feel at the end of one year and beginning another. So like, is there a different way? And I kind of looked around, tried to see if, some, different people had different ideas. And finally, I just decided to kind of make my own process. That's something that I've been like kind of tinkering with, experimenting with is like creating my own way of doing things, creating my own traditions, like not being a rule follower necessarily, being more of like a cook instead of a baker, instead of following a recipe, being like, what sounds good? What sounds good together? What would be interesting? What would be fun? What would be life-giving? And then doing that and starting to kind of put some of my own traditions into place. So this is a really big way that I did that. And I put together my own tradition for ending one year and beginning the next. So that's the first thing that I'm doing at the end of this really big year, and that I've done every year for the last 10 years or so, is I ditch my New Year's resolutions, just ditch the process of making them all together. We can make our own rules for how we want to start and end a year. Also, just a reminder in case anyone needs it the way that I always did. I wish I could have told myself this like on, the December 31st or 30th, maybe as I'm thinking about it, of every single year. And that is that you can have a terrible New Year's Eve and a terrible New Year's Day and still have a really great year. It does not set the tone the way that we think, the way that it sometimes feels like it does. Also, you can have a fresh slate, a clean slate, anytime you want one. There is nothing magical about January 1st. So just in case anyone needs like a little bit of pressure taken off that day. Okay, so then here's the thing that I am doing, that I decided to do in this sort of new tradition of my own. First, I reflect. In my parents' house in Colorado, we never did those growth charts growing up. I don't think we did. Maybe we did. I have to ask my parents. I can't think of where it is in my house because my parents still live in the same house that I grew up in. But I do know that when my daughters were born, my dad wanted to do one for the girls. And so he has this spot on the wall in the basement where he's been tracking their growth. And then when my niece was born, he's been tracking my niece's growth also. And so every time we're over at their house, we like have the girls stand up on the wall and like stand straight. And we make a little mark and we put their name and we put the date. And it's really, really special to get to watch their progress over time. And so that's really one of the things I think is so beautiful about a new year, and the fact that we do have sort of this calendar start over, is that instead of offering us a chance to like finally be the person we've always wanted to be, but we've always like been too awful to ever become, or whatever the kind of current narrative is, it offers us a moment to pause, to like end one chapter and wait a sec before beginning a new one, and like ask how it went, and talk about what we might want to do differently moving forward, and to dream, and to thank the people we need to thank ourselves, give ourselves kind of a like, hey, good job. Whether this year was fantastic or hard or both, as it probably was for most of us, like, you did it. It's just a pause. Reflecting at the end of the year is a chance to see how far you've come. It's a chance to remember where you came from. And it's a chance to sort of celebrate the life that happened in between one of those things and the other. So that's how I end my years now. I take some time to remember what happened this year, to learn from some of the things that happened this year, to write them down so that I can take them with me moving forward. It's so many things happen in the course of a day in our lives. It's hard to remember what you had for dinner like 2 days ago, let alone something that you learned 6 months ago. And so that's why I like, before it's completely gone out of your head, just taking a second, remember, what did you learn? What did you go through? What happened? What was hard? What was good? And also taking a minute to just have some closure on whatever happened in that year. Another element of this is, how athletes watch like game film of themselves? I feel like maybe I just follow football the closest, but I feel like, football players do that a ton. They watch film of themselves playing, and this is true for all kinds of athletes. It's a really amazing practice because you get to sort of see what happened in a different way. You get to, like, when you're watching something after the fact, you know how it turned out. And so knowing what the result is, you get to sort of reverse engineer what happened and what went well and what you maybe would want to do differently moving forward. It's one of the most powerful techniques for change, really, and improvement in kind of any area of our lives. And so this is sort of a way of watching game film of ourselves from the year. It's a chance for us to say, like, what did I do this year? And what didn't I do? And how did that turn out for me? And what do I want to do differently moving forward? So that's the second thing that I do. I've done every year for the last 10 years or so. That's been so wonderful and impactful and just a really fantastic way to end the year. And also really, really helpful for moving well into a new year and making sure I'm going in the direction I want to go in my life, is to reflect. So that's what I'm going to be doing here in just a couple weeks on 2024, is taking some time to reflect. And then the last thing that I've done, again, for the last 10 years or so, ever since I got really tired of the New Year's resolutions thing, is to set intentions for the year moving forward. Now, I played with this word a lot. Is it goals? Is it like a direction? Is it, what is, it's not resolutions. So what is it? And I came up with intentions because I feel like intentions are future focused, but also like a little bit wiggly around the edges. So they give some room for grace. And I think calling something an intention, at least for me, puts a little guard around my tendency to like really go hard at something. I can be pretty mean to myself if left unchecked, if something is like a goal or a vow that I have to, like I'm going to make this different about my life. An intention is a little softer. And that's something that I really need, just in all parts of life, but especially after, years of New Year's resolution Kool-Aid. So set intentions for moving forward. And this is super, for as much as I don't like New Year's resolutions, setting intentions and taking stock of where you've been and also making some plans for where you want to go is super, super important. Because if we don't do this, if we don't take some time to figure out where we are, where we've been, and where we want to go, we're not going to get to where we want to be. If we don't pick a direction for our lives, and kind of make a plan for how to get there, one of three things ends up happening. One, you go where the tide takes you. You end up just kind of flowing along with whatever happens in life. And, this circumstance hits, and so you kind of go in this direction. And then this person says this thing, so you kind of go in this direction. And you're just sort of following whatever happens. And that is absolutely one way to live your life. But I don't think it's the best way to live your life if you have an idea of what the end game is. If you have a destination, just sort of wandering wherever the wind blows you is not the most effective way of getting to your destination. The second thing that can happen is that you end up going where someone else tells you to go. And like we talked about at the beginning, in our everything era, there are 1 million opinions about what life should look like for a woman like us. Everyone has an opinion. And so if we don't know what our opinion is, we end up following someone else's, and that isn't necessarily going to take us where we want to go either. Then the last thing that can happen is we just don't go anywhere. That's maybe the one that bugs me the most. The idea of getting, reflecting at the end of this coming year and being like, man, nothing changed. And so that's why it's so important for us to just stop and pause and figure out, like, where do we want to be going? And what am I going to do this year in order to get there? The beginning of a new year isn't magic, but it is a carved out time in the calendar where it's maybe a little bit easier to pick a new path or to make sure you're on the right one. It's a time where you can put things into place so that a year from now, you are closer to where you want to be. One of my very favorite quotes, I think about this all the time, is a year from now, you'll wish you had started today. And setting intentions and making some plans at the beginning of a new year is a way to do that. So those are the three things that I'm doing at the end of this year. I'm ditching the idea of New Year's resolutions. Don't need them. Those are not helpful for my heart. The second thing I'm doing is I'm taking some time to reflect. And the third thing I'm doing is I'm setting some intentions for the year ahead. If you don't know how to do this, if you're sitting here going, Steph, that's great, but like, what does this look like? For years, this practice has been so important to me and so helpful for me in genuinely creating a life I love, and making sure I'm on track to do that year after year. For years, I've wanted to put together the process that I created all those years ago that I've been doing for the last 10. And I finally got it done. And so I have it available for you guys if you need a little bit of help finishing one year well and beginning another year or beginning this next year the way you want to. It's a guided journal and I have it. It's in my shop right now and it'll be there until probably just like a week or two into January. To finish off, I wanted to read you just the end of my book, Create a Life You Love. And these are just sort of the words that I want to send us off with, ending one year and into the next. So here they are. There's not one right way to build a life. You get to decide. You get to figure out who you are, what makes you you, and then be you with your whole heart. Building a life you're excited about and proud of, a life that's a beautiful reflection of the woman who chose it, a life that looks and feels like you. And when we do this, not only are we creating a life we love, a life that's creative and authentic and free, we're also paving the way for other women to do the same. We're showing our little sisters, our nieces, our daughters, and our granddaughters who a woman can be and what a woman can do. We're showing them that girls can do anything, but don't have to do everything, thank goodness. We're opening up a world of possibilities in a kaleidoscope of different colors. You are brave and strong and good and worthy of a life you love, and I'm cheering you on every step of the way as you pursue exactly that. Friend, thank you so much for being here at Girls Night. I am truly honored to get to be your friend. Thank you so much for a wonderful year, and I am so excited for what's ahead of us. I'll see you in February for another episode of Girls Night, and in the meantime, I'm sending you all of my love.